Where'd you find the Book of Mormon?
Spectre.
Travis Wayne Goodsell. So, Stanford brought me to tears this morning. He was doing some research on James Bond, Ian Fleming's character from his books that turned into probably the best movie series production ever by the Broccoli family. So yeah, I have lots of memories, as there's lots of things I relate to with the movies from James Bond. Even my dad, when I was in high school, he bought me a James Bond role-playing game, and just out of the blue, he just bought it for me and gave it to me. It's a role-playing game. I need other people to play with. So I was able to use the dice to make my own board games. But yeah, that was during the homophobic 80s, where my parents were afraid that my uncle's gay gene was going to be passed to me. Mom, Dad, is there something you need to tell me about my uncle? He was 17 years younger than my parents, my dad. And so my dad was 22 years of age when I was born, when I was conceived, I think, yeah, conceived. And so that would have made him 5 years old. But, yeah, it was a period of time where my dad shoved Farrah Fawcett's swimsuit poster in my face. Doesn't she look pretty? Don't you desire her? I'm scared, Dad. I'm scared. I'm just a teenager. Jennifer Connelly, remember? I'm a kid. Nightmares. But yeah, James Bond, I just instantly clicked with. And so yeah, I have trouble re-watching James Bond because I instantly break out bawling. You know, On Her Majesty's Secret Service, the one and only show with George Lazenby playing Bond, the ending, I lose it. And so to have the theme music and then to have it tributed in the final Bond of Daniel Craig. Oh, God. Stanford. He was focusing on The World Is Not Enough from the video I did yesterday, in which that's my favorite Pierce Brosnan. Again, I bawl at the beginning where he's being tortured in North Korea. Oh, dear God. Because I too was tortured by the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints in their concentration camp of hell of human trafficking. I disappeared for 6 years of my life. And the church instantly was threatened by me, a faithful and devout Mormon, because I deciphered Paleo-Hebrew. I exposed this church as a fraud when I'm just an innocent, naive Mormon, didn't know what I was doing. I just wanted to know how Joseph Smith translated Hebrew. Came for its sermon. That's it. That's all. I didn't expect that I then became the guy who was supposed to lead Mormons, especially since Mormons want me dead. So the test that every single Mormon is supposed to put on a claim to the leadership of Joseph Smith's religion is in section 107, verse 91 and 92. And again, the duty of the president of the office of the high priesthood is to preside over the whole church and to be the Jewish Christ, the man like Moses. They do not footnote Deuteronomy 18, verse 15. This is an obvious one to put. But Bruce R. McConkie made sure it did not get put. Instead, they put D&C 103:16, which again is not footnoted to Deuteronomy 18:15. The Jewish Christ. It's the Jewish Christ who's supposed to come in the future and save Mormons from the great and abominable church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. And so Mormons can test to find out who's deceiving them by the fruits of seer, revelator, translator, and prophet. Because the true guy will have all those gifts, which God bestows upon the head of the church. If there's somebody claiming to be the head of the church, and he can't translate, all Mormons now know he's a fraud and an imposter, and he needs to be booted out. Right, Nelson? And so Mormons are being kept in the dark on purpose, maliciously, from me, the one who deciphered Paleo-Hebrew and deciphered Egyptian as a consequence. No, Jean Champollion deciphered the learning of the Greeks' language of the Egyptians. And so if you missed the video before Christmas, and even on Christmas, I think, Bethlehem, you at least know that Bethlehem is two Hebrew words, Beth, house, lachem, bread. Because if you don't know that, we can't go any further. In Egyptian, the temple in Luxor and in also called Thebes, but was called in the learning of the Greeks, language of the Egyptians, as Waset, has the hieroglyphs of both a loaf of bread and a house. House of bread, the capital of Egypt, and the temple at the capital of Egypt, the house of bread. And so the temple is dedicated to who? Emmanuel. Yep. Same guy from Isaiah. And so it's not to be translated God with us. Sorry, Christian, who imposed it on Matthew's document. Notice the Book of Mormon does not put God with us. Notice how Joseph Smith sees who described as what? Yeah, the Egyptian sun god Amun at noonday is the chief god of the Egyptians. And there are multiple translations, and they use different stories to intertwine, but they're all prophecies and revelations that are plagiarized in the whole Bible. And so one of these stories is the book of Ishtar, which is a Mesopotamian goddess. But she was stolen by the Egyptians of Isis. And let me go back to her. And she just happens to deal with the month of Tevet, number 10 of the religious months. It would be number 4 for the civil months. And as I've been going over with you, and I've been showing you a little chart for Kislev having Tevet at the bottom, because Hanukkah carries over into Tevet. This is day number 5, got the new moon, thus the 5th dark day of Hanukkah, the darkest time of the year, to remind Jews of the abomination of desolation by the Greeks. Confiscating the Jerusalem temple, destroying the altar, and then 10 days later offering their religious sacrifices on the altar oven. Day shall come that shall burn as an oven. And Joseph Smith knew that it was both. That those who come to alter Joseph Smith's temple would be the same ones who would turn it into a different interpretation, because they're the ones that have to cause it in order for the interpretation to come true. They that come shall burn you, warns Joseph Smith. Second vision. And also a part of this abomination was the Greeks beginning their temple ritual worship that included paying women for prostitution, for sex. And so all Mormons should be well aware of what Brigham Young did to Joseph Smith. Destroyed his temple rituals, which was just washing and anointings. Yeah, no underwear, no covenant paths, no death threats, no bondage in marriage. But also, all Mormons are forced to pay to only have sex with Mormon girls in the temple. At 8 years old, all Mormon girls have to pay tithing to be chaste. And the church goes to the extreme beyond our forcing everyone to deny their biological natures. We are specifically designed to perpetuate the human race. All creatures, animal or plant life, are designed to perpetuate their kind. And so for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints to threaten all Mormons with sexual abuse, so that we then have to commit the crime of prostitution and sex trafficking if you are involved in a marriage involving a Mormon from another state or country. That's BYU. And apparently in the state of Utah, kids are able to graduate at 16 years of age, which means getting married before the age of an adult of 18 means that the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints is also getting you to commit child prostitution and sex trafficking. Abominable just is the best word for it, but it seems like it's incomplete of what this church is doing to everybody. And so I found Stanford's comment rather than waiting until after doing this video, because I had to again have a little talk with the Salt Lake City Police Department Chief Mike Brown for his failure to have his officers do their jobs for we the people of Salt Lake City. And because of the dereliction of duty, I then had to also remind Chief Brown of the previous tip about the criminal operation in his jurisdiction of the sex crimes, and then continued on with phase 2 to explain that the money raised from the sex crimes was for terrorism and insurrection against the United States of America. Those of you who've been following me know I've covered all of this. From their origin with Johann Adam Weishaupt through into the United States, through the Scottish Rites, and in as a secret combination inside Joseph Smith's religion. Joseph Smith was framed and blamed, and ex-foes, nevermos, refused to do the research to accept that. They still blame Joseph for it. I did notice Still Mormon is still doing videos. The church hasn't silenced him yet. His recent one that was recommended to me was about Fanny Allgaier. I remember Curtis Allgaier. We were cellmates for a period of time before being disappeared for 6 years of my life back in 2008. Well, Brian David Mitchell also was part of the gang. And me, the big bad terrorist, for petitioning the government for a redress of grievances. Yeah, that's all I did. Plus threw in some translation stuff, which pissed off the church. And I have that receipt of all 15 corporate board members who ordered and then rewarded my disappearance. And there was a complete purging of my existence. Deseret News removed all of my comments. And they forgot to remove those who mentioned my name in their replies to my comments, so that everybody would forget who I am and never know that I existed. Because both the airport director and, most recently, the school bus driver, they're gone. We're never going to hear from them ever again. And so when you find out that there were illegal activities behind catching these guys for the crimes they were accused of, but never given due process in a court of law. I see exactly what's going on, even though that's not what they got me for. Mine was the First Amendment. Petitioning the government. Theirs, they were accused of being porn downloaders. But the news covered on the bus driver guy that they have a division with the police, or FBI, or whoever it was, who, without a warrant, spies on people's computers. And instead of going after the actual criminals who uploaded the child porn, they're claiming that downloading was the crime. I'm seeing what's it called when the case has to be dismissed? Can't remember offhand. It's been too long since I've seen a legal show. But all charges have to be dismissed because of the corruption of the way they obtain the evidence. And I'm very well aware of hackers who are able to plant documents and files and photos on computers, because I was a victim of it back in 2017. I have both file pages up, and I noticed that there was a new file, and I'm checking it out. I have to click on it, and there's more files. So I click on one of those files, and there are more files. And I click on one of those, and more files. And it seemed to go on for over a dozen of them, until finally I got to one where the files were disappearing right before my eyes. I'm going, what's going on? Am I being hacked? And so I try to get ahead to see what's in the files, and as I get in, the files are deleting right before my eyes, so I'm not able to see what they are. And so clearly I'm being cyber attacked. And so I did an emergency shut off, and then turned the computer back on, and found that somebody had planted gay porn on my computer. Was it you, Dad? And so it's weird that by catching them, they knew I had caught them, despite my security service that failed me. They were deleting it, which all they needed to do was let me know that it was gay porn, and I would have deleted it. Dear God. But yeah, that was just wild that hackers have the ability to do such things. And then I found out about the Strengthening Church Members Committee, who were the ones responsible for all of the cyber terrorism and attempts to shut down my YouTube channel all these years by orders of the corporate board. These guys were also the ones who threatened my brother that he was going to be fired and excommunicated if he did not silence my YouTube channels and financially hurt me. My brother was forced to pay the $2,000 retainer to obtain legal counsel. That legal counsel sent me a threatening letter saying that your brother, they called him Doctor, your brother has been threatened and with the termination of employment and excommunication from the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints if you don't cease immediately. I couldn't believe it. I'm being threatened by his lawyers for something that I didn't do. It's the church. They did the crime to my brother. And my brother lost $2,000 as I had responded, wait a minute, so you're saying the church threatened my brother's employment and membership to commit a crime against me, his brother, and you're not going after them? You're complicit in this to come after me, and you were paid $2,000. And so yeah, I kept the $2,000, and my brother got hurt by the church for failure. This is where my bishop, back in 2018, the beginning of 2018, trapped me because the Strengthening Church Members Committee contacted him and said, Travis has a video that's going against the prophets. Do you want to know what the video topic was about? It was about the Book of Mormon. Second Nephi, chapter 2, verse 25. Adam fell that man might be. Men are that they might have joy. That was the video that the bishop was told by the Strengthening Church Members Committee, under orders of the corporate board, that I was going against the corporate board and it needed to be taken down. Doing a video on the Book of Mormon, being true, and it goes against the corporate board. And I was threatened and kicked out of the church, not excommunicated, because I wouldn't. How many Mormons have been threatened by a fellow member or religious leader of this church to stop doing what you're doing? Did you conform and comply? Or did you have honor and integrity because you weren't doing anything wrong? This is the Strengthening Church Members Committee. They're the ones responsible for all of this. The church was actively involved in causing me harm ever since I deciphered Paleo-Hebrew, because it means I'm the head of the church. Mormons kept telling me, you're not the head of the church. Hinckley is. Monson is. Nelson is. But they're not translators. I am. Which means they're not the head of the church. I am. Why are you threatening me, who is your head of the church? Why are you allowing yourself to be deceived and turned into a criminal, to do the criminal activities of the corporate board? And so yes, this is why YouTube has a Mormon specifically in place to silence my channel. Normally, I'd be getting hundreds of thousands of views per video. The stuff I produce just destroys and decimates this corporation. But that's why I'm here. Because what I found out in 2021 exposes their terrorist and insurrectionist plot. And so I didn't really need to get the mission president's letter to parents and stake presidents from Sister Jessica. I already knew it, but thank you, Oaks, for getting leaked. So yes, Chief Mike Brown was given the documents and evidence sufficient to shut this church down. But will he do it? Obviously, he's going to be threatened with excommunication, probably lose his job. All he had to do was take care of the little incident I called in yesterday. Didn't bother to do it again. Every single Mormon has evidence, documentation, recordings, and receipts of the crimes of this church. How many of you have the courage to stand up and call it out? There was a woman in West Valley City who slipped and fell at a church activity. The bishop did nothing to help them financially for the medical bills that incurred. She's an elderly woman, and so it's permanent. She still struggles, if she's not already dead since the last time I was forced out. And she was asked, well, why don't you sue to get compensation, since the bishop wouldn't help? And the bishop won't even help with any kind of assistance whatsoever. They're being completely denied. Her husband had to come out of retirement to be forced to go back to work to pay for the medical bills. And the bishop forced them to do that. There are other horror stories in that ward and stake. There's a deaf man who clearly has a disability, and yet Bishop forced him to go get work to take care of his family. Resists all assistance to help them. There was a Catholic or Christian woman in the ward boundaries whose husband died. The Relief Society president at the time wanted to, provide some assistance with food and such during this time of grief. Bishop said no. Would have been a perfect opportunity to do some fellowshipping if your religion was true. Nope. Opportunity made worse. And so, that neighbor wants nothing to do with the church as a result. And those who were threatened not to do anything for her also are disaffected of the church now. This is the damage that this church causes. And it's not even a church, it's a corporation. As I use corporate board to help you understand. The Articles of Incorporation by Heber J. Grant, calling it the corporation. And so thus on Irene's leaked paycheck stub, up in the upper right hand corner, COP. If you see Gaddy versus COP, yeah, that's why. Or Travis Wayne Goodsell versus COP, that's why. It is not a religion. It's a corporation. Corporations have no authority to marry people. You got to be a religion to do that. And yet, the corporate board freely gives out authority for bishops and sealers and even them to marry. They have no authority to marry. All of our marriages are null and void. They're instantly annullable according to Utah law because they were performed illegally and unlawfully in the act of a crime, prostitution, and potentially sex trafficking, if not child prostitution and sex trafficking. And the press are all compromised, threatened not to investigate the church. Surprised Max Roth still works at Fox. Don't hear about him too much these days. Is he gone? Yeah, 2018. He found out about the LLC companies for Russia to launder the $32 billion through. And a major city yet to be determined in Russia. And so we're waiting for the fall of this church, the great and abominable church. They're practicing the abomination of desolation. And we are warned that they will be nuking us by them themselves. George Albert Smith, Bruce Armour Conkey, others warned of the nuclear coming of Jesus. And since they're not a legitimate religion, that they're a criminal operation using the sex crime money, prostitution money, to fund their terrorist plot to coup the governance and destroy with a mass extermination of mankind, that Jesus is code for their plot, and thus the way to perfection, which got me here. About Adam on Diamond. He clearly states it's a secret combination orchestrated and designed to coup the governments. And so when you put it with Oaks getting leaked, saying that 2020 was just a test run for 2024, that Mitt Romney in 2020 almost got assassinated as a test run by the corporate board that he is a member of. Mitt Romney running for president exposed the church's underwear. Thanks for the pick that I was able to use over Jesus. Gotta have Jesus wearing the underwear. Joseph Smith died because he wasn't wearing his underwear. And so, for the month of Tevet, is what we're going to be going over with. We'll try to keep it under 20 minutes, as that was now the introduction. So, first we have to go back into Kislev, where Hanukkah began. It began on the 26th of December this year, which every year is the 25th of Kislev for the Jewish calendar. And so yes, the Christmas Day Eve began Hanukkah. This was also the day when the Greeks began their abomination of desolation of both the altar oven sacrifices and the prostitution of women. But 3 years later, the Maccabees retook the temple. And then you have the miracle of Hanukkah with the menorah. There's a channel that I've been paying attention to daily during this Hanukkah service. Central Synagogue is the YouTube channel. They're doing a little video clip by the different rabbis, and you'll notice they are women. Notice Joseph Smith also gave priesthood and priesthood office to women, 17th of March, 1842, adding to the abominations and abuses of women by this corporate board. And so, because it's the 25th of Kislev, it carries over into the first 2 days of Tevet, every single Jewish calendar year. And this year, it just happens to correspond with the first and second days of January. But there's some other stuff that is involved with this. The fifth dark day of Hanukkah, that has to do with the miracle of Hanukkah, where the oil wasn't supposed to last and it miraculously did. Whether that's true or not doesn't matter. That's the whole symbolism and prophecy that Joseph Smith's, well, yeah, Joseph does talk about it, but also in the Book of Mormon. Notice how I'm not connecting Joseph as the author of the Book of Mormon. Gotta pay attention to my videos. Senior is the one who had to rewrite the 116 pages. And so in 2 Nephi chapter 3 verse 5, there at the end, about the Mormon, who would be your man like Moses, seer, prophet, revelator, and translator of Paleo-Hebrew and Egyptian, is involved with Hanukkah. And more especially because of the Joseph Smith translation with Revelation chapter 12. In Revelation chapter 12, verse 3, the date that is given is the 17th of December, 2017. That was the fifth dark day of Hanukkah. Using the heavens to tell the time of when it was to occur. Prophecy, revelation. So thus, Joseph Smith translation, Revelation chapter 12, verse 1, sign in the heavens in the likeness of things on the earth. And on the 17th of December, 2017, I would find out much later that that's when Nelson usurped Monson's deathbed authority to lower the age of child bride, polygamist, sex trafficked prostitutes to 11. Arizona went beyond the mark. If you remember that scandal, the Mormon legislature revised the Civil War era law for 10 years old This church is just so abominable. I had no clue as a baby. None whatsoever. But as a primary kid, I started to catch on. What do you mean I gotta give 10% of my money to the church? Oh, it's for the poor? Okay, fine, I'll do it if it's for the poor. Wait a minute, it's not for the poor? I'm paying back the atonement of Jesus as atonement money? What? Yep. Knew as a kid something wasn't right. You don't steal candy from a kid. That's exactly what the church does. I would buy the cigarette candy once. And then, chalk. So I'd have to buy other candy there. And then if the arcade game was not being played, I think it was Asteroids on the arcade game there at the 7-Eleven at the corner there in Corona, California, as I'd come home from Auburn Jail Junior High for 8th grade. But nonetheless, lots of memories in that place too. And so Revelation chapter 12 verse 3, 5th dark day of Hanukkah, 2017. This year, you have to include the Joseph Smith translation for Revelation chapter 12 verse 4, because the Joseph Smith translation moves verse 5 to verse 3, as it should, for the 23rd of September 2017, my big debut. And 3 got moved to 4, but 4 stayed 4. Didn't get moved to verse 5. This is where it's significant. Joseph Smith clearly knows, thanks to his daddy, about the dates of the latter days, and he's given them to us. And so despite no man knows the day or the hour, they're all over the place. You just got to use the learning of the Jews, prophecy and revelation. Not inspiration, revelation. Revelation of day and hour time from astronomy. And so the setting in order of the temple, section 85, verse 7, the one mighty and strong. And again, not footnoted to Deuteronomy 18, verse 15. They don't want you to know that they're a fraud. And so, verse 4 in Revelation chapter 12 was the 2nd of January 2018. Quadranted meteor showers, third largest meteor showers of the year, when Monson died. And thus the video yesterday, which Stanford made me cry with his comment about James Bond. Because Joseph Smith translation, by keeping it with 4 and merging it with 3, is exactly what is happening this year. Hanukkah by ending on the 2nd of January is the quadranted meteor showers this year too. So thus the question I asked, will scripture prophecy repeat itself this year? I'm watching very carefully. The curse of Joseph Smith is stalking Russell Marion Nelson. Everybody else has fallen victim to the curse. Why should Russell think he's different, other than he was the latter-day false prophet of all scriptural prophecy? Even Deuteronomy 18, verse 20. Doctrine and Covenants 85, verse 8. Brigham is just stupid. Seriously, dear God. You put section 85 out the year before he dies, along with section 117 the year before you die? What? Section 117 is a forged document about Adam-on-Diamond and the bishop of Adam-on-Diamond, when section 85 tells us that the clerk, W.W. Phelps, is for the bishop, who is not Newell K. Whitney, the false bishop of the Danites, Nicolaitan band of Brigham Young, and Adam-on-Diamond. Dear God. And nobody caught on to this, that Brigham lied and deceived, framed Joseph, because it means Joseph is not the leader of the Danites. So says the Danites. The year before Brigham died. Comes out and confesses, nope, we tricked you. We lied. Forced the women to write in their journals that Joseph Smith did it. And that's the Still Mormon guy who did the video, who knows how long ago. But yeah, I see that he's starting to branch out now, that he's gotten the word out that Joseph Smith was never a polygamist. So now he's going to other claims that Joseph was a polygamist and showing how they were the frauds. You're getting closer to getting close to caught up. Keep going. Keep going. Maybe you can bring some of the exfo nevermos into your circle to believe you. Because they ain't believing me, because YouTube shut me down through the Strengthening Church Members Committee, ordered and paid for by the corporation. Okay? So I'm paying very close attention to what might happen. I really hope it does. Not just to finally be free of that Lucifer, baby name meaning Russell Marion, but also so that Mormons can wake up. That would shock Mormons, because you know there's going to be several Mormons at least who are going to catch on that Nelson died on the same day that Monson died. They won't know anything else, just that. They won't know about the quadranted meteor showers or revelation. That's me. And so yes, such news would be big enough that I might get a few hundred for my video covering it, as I'm the authority on the matter. In case you'd forgotten already about the scripture test that you are all supposed to use to find out who the head of the church is supposed to be. And so, then this leads us into Esther. This is when she is brought before the Persian court, who would replace the naughty Vashti, who refused to dance naked before the king's guests. So let's bring it back up again. So Ahasuerus of Persia and Media makes royal feasts. Vashti disobeys the king and is deposed as queen. This is set in the time period post-Babylon. The Jews are apparently under the reign of Persia, and so it doesn't really talk about them having gone back to Jerusalem. And so the major theme has to do with Purim, that there was a servant of the king who had significant power and influence to get things done for the king, who plotted to murder the Jews and made the king sign into law the extermination order of all Jews. And so with Esther being the replacement queen, as this is an Egyptian story, in case I hadn't told you, but I know I did, Isis, from Ishtar, Esther. So you have Marduk, Mordecai, who warns the queen, Esther, of this plot to murder all Jews, and thus Esther too. And so she violated protocol, risking getting assassinated, to go into the king's court without being announced, to inform him that of the order that he had signed that required her to die. And thus the king was pissed, and thus the weapon used to murder the Jews was the weapon used on the guy who made the order. Deuteronomy 19 for false accusers. Punishment for false accusers. This is where people misunderstand eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth, especially in Handmaid's Tale. Her right eye didn't offend them, they didn't need to pluck it out, but they're purposely pulling scriptures out of context to commit their crimes. You see that in our government. God, don't even get me started. I've warned you. You knew who he was when you picked him up to carry him across the river, and yet you're now complaining, or will complain, when he murders you. The girl and the snake. Trump. Hello? You can't play dumb. Even Mitt Romney said that those who voted for Trump can't complain once he takes office. Remember, Mitt Romney was attempted to be assassinated as a test run by the corporate board of which he is a member, not member. He's a cash cow for the corporate board. That's the thing, is that Mormons get played. They think they're members and they're not members. It's like they're a member of Costco, Amazon, Prime membership. That's where you are a member. You are cash cows for the company. But Bezos and other Elon Musks, they don't marry people. Mormons don't get this. I mean, yeah, you can use Amazon for all your bridal shopping. Chad Daybell and Lori Vallow did. Oh my God. But they flew to Hawaii to get secretly married. Dear God. And so this is where Nephi is allowed legally to chop off the head of Laban, because they tried to purchase the plates of brass, but Laban stole the money, called them thieves, and said that the punishment for being thieves was death. Thus, being a false accuser, boom, he has to die. And so, yes, if we were to follow that with the curse of Joseph Smith, that's exactly where the curse of Joseph Smith applies to. There's this concept of Purim from Deuteronomy 19 for false accusers of Joseph Smith, and eye for an eye. They murdered Joseph Smith. Under the sun shall be darkened, moon turned to blood, stars fall from heaven. And so thus every single Brighamite, sun shall be darkened, moon turned to blood, stars fall from heaven. And I just stumbled on that after Monson's death, doing the research to see what's going on. And so Nelson won't escape it. He's worse than all of them previously, because Nelson is purposely violating everything to destroy this church. And it's because of Harold B. Lee's additional articles of incorporation, in which he says, upon the winding down and dissolution of this corporation, but 1973, and you're now talking about winding down and dissolving the corporation, like the United States did to Brigham in 1887, when John Taylor died. Weird. And so, yeah, dear God. So this is what we have coming for the month of Tevet. The first, this is the scripture story. That's why it was blue on the original Kislev chart. Color-coded for you. Is because it's prophecy and revelation, not literal history. And so I put Revelation 19, DNC 58, because of the wedding supper feast of the Lamb at the Temple of Zion. The 10 virgins. Tevet, 10th month in the religious calendar. The second is the final day of Hanukkah, the quadranted meteor showers, Joseph Smith translation, Revelation chapter 4. It's the 7th year when Monson's died. And so again, 7s and 8s come into play from the dreams I'd been having. Specifically the first one with Hinckley, when I was first disappeared. I had the dream of Hinckley, in which I was going to a concert or some event at Rick's College, and as I got to the doors to go in, the deceased Gordon B. Hinckley with his wife Marjorie appeared before me, all dressed up, and they said, we don't have tickets to attend. Can you give us your tickets? For some reason I had 2 when it was just me. Why is that, woman? Even in my dreams. God. And so, yeah, I just quickly gave it to him. I didn't think about it. Just gave it to him. Said, sure, here you go. And to show his gratitude, he gave me the key card to his office. With the number 77 in red on it. And I was pissed at the time, because I knew I was going to be disappeared forever. Why are you teasing me? Why do you mock my pain? And so, yeah, then room number 88 and number 77. And so, yeah, all of 2024, there's a whole bunch of 77s and 88s. And the combination of 7 plus 8, 15. And so, yes, that's where I'm wondering about the Irene dream on 9/11 this year, in which he wanted to transfer authority to me, and the number 15 popped up twice. And then there was the Monson one, where I had his boots. I went to go give it back to him. He just kept walking on by. And so I took him back to my tent that I was living in. Feast of Tents, Tabernacles, Sukkot. All plays a part. All has to do with the man like Moses. Okay, and so now the extra stuff for Tevet that I have yet to make a picture of, and that's why we're doing this video, to force me to make the picture. Put up the video 3 years from now. Let's see. They're not all in order. Because, well, let's go to the PDF. I checked already. The quadrantids are the only peaks for the month for the stars in the heaven stuff. And so we have the 10th of Tevet. What, 9th? Dear God. Well, that's not part of this. The 10th was a literal history occurrence in 588 BC. This is when Nebuchadnezzar II's armies came back to Jerusalem and would result in the 9th Av destruction of the temple and the city, taking prisoners and hostages back to Ur of Babylon, with the Marduk temple that too many people claim is Ur of Babylon, of the Tower of Babel. No, that's in Lebanon. Has to do with the Egyptians and Osiris being murdered, becoming a tree in Lebanon, cedar of Lebanon. And then a branch taken to the United States of America, where I would be born. So yeah, everything. It's just going over that again this morning, as I probably should take a break, and then come back and go over the rest of the calendar stuff that applies for this prophetic month. All scriptures by the Jews prophesy of me, even those of the Egyptians that weren't included in the Bible also. And so the book of Jasher, that's where I put a hot burning coal in my mouth. The Gnostic Gospels, that's where I pushed my brother Todd off the roof. I guess he just wanted revenge. and Samson, that's from the Bible, but yeah, Sun King, all of the events are solar eclipses, but the events actually did happen. Room number 13 in the Salt Lake Temple, with the wedding supper feast at the Lion House, next to the Beehive House. And she cut my hair and betrayed me to the Philistines. And then there was another one, I think it was an Egyptian one. Oh yeah, the branch. The branch is used in the scriptures, Isaiah and Jeremiah and Ezekiel, Ezekiel. That's the parable of the branch coming to America. I think some Zechariah some other stuff. Talk about the branch. Well, the Egyptians have the story that at the first year of the latter days, Set plucks out the right eye of Horus. But Horus wins the whole contest by demonstrating that he is the branch born of Set. It involves a salad with special sauce. And Egyptologists don't understand it. It's very simple. And so, as a child, in Placentia, California, we had bushes and trees along the side of the house next to the adjoining house in the suburbs there that were kind of old. We had bought the house from somebody else who was selling it. And it was on my dad's to-do list to cut the branch because it was sticking way out into the yard. And one day Mom got fed up with us kids, kicked us out of the house to go play in the front yard. And whatever ball we were using fell or rolled under the tree branch. I went over to get it. Boom. The dead tree branch struck me in the eye. I didn't strike it. It reached out and grabbed me. And I thought I was dead, going to be blind forever. And Dad immediately had it cut down. Moved it up to the top of the honey-do list. And I have the scar in my cornea ever since. So every time I would go in to get my eyes checked, every single eye doctor says, "Oh, you know you have a scar in your eye?" "Yes." "Also have a scar here, I think. Isn't it?" "Yeah, I think it's here. The scar." That's from falling in the back seat of the station wagon on our trip to visit Mom's parents in Ventura for our dental checks as well. That was when I was too young to remember. Sort of. I may remember it. Acquired stitches. I have scars. And despite what people tell me, chicks don't dig scars. Alrighty. So, we can try to get through these. This is all that we have left. Might as well. So the 10th of Tevet is the next. And that's when, on the 9th year of the reign of Zedekiah, before the 11th year of the reign of Zedekiah, which again, I remind you, from 2014, when I was miraculously freed, and the start of "the sun shall be darkened, moon turned to blood, stars fall from heaven," where Perry Packer Scott die, I call it the pre-show, to 2025 is 11 years. Even though the first year of the latter days is officially 2017. Brilliant. Joseph Smith Sr. in his utilizing of the latter day events to tell his various stories to teach us this, to give us the days and the hours. After all, I am his descendant through Hiram, according to the prophecy that he himself gave in 2 Nephi chapter 3 verse 5. Thus, branch. Okay, and then also on the 10th of Tevet, they're claiming 479 BCE, but once you put Esther in there, you know it's not literal history. This is where she is chosen to become the queen of the Persian king. And they have a different spelling than our King James Version of the Bible spelling. It's Akashverosh, something like that. And so on 10 virgins, she becomes the queen. The wedding supper feast of the Lamb at the Zion Temple. But I'm not seeing that happen. I'm seeing 3 more months. I'm pissed, but if it happens sooner, great. I did let Chief Brown know. And so he most likely starts work at 9, unless he takes these 2 days off and then works Thursday and Friday. I don't know the schedule. But yes, you can see it in the context of the prostituting of women of the Greeks. That these Jews are keeping the same themes going around. This is where women are to be set free from their bondage, sex crime bondage. And, dear God, and the Handmaid's Tale. Oh, God. So, yeah, I purposely put the theme song from the episode I was currently watching in the description below yesterday, from Blondie. I don't recall ever hearing that version, so I recognized it was Blondie, but it was a remix, and so sure enough, I found it. And let's see, that doesn't apply. That doesn't apply. The first volume of the Babylonian Talmud is printed in Italy, 1483, but that doesn't apply. That doesn't apply. Here's a claim that is unsubstantiated. It's based on myth. Jewish elders produce a translation of the biblical Hebrew Bible into Greek, the Septuagint, for Ptolemy II in Philadelphus. No, we don't have that copy. There is no evidence that that ever existed. We do have, however, with the creation of the Christian Septuagint, around 400 CE, the claim that it came from that in the 3rd century. Can't. All we have is the 4th century CE, and the claim for the 3rd century BCE doesn't even hold weight. You have 72. Septuagint means 70. So you have 72 Jews who independently translate the whole Tanakh, Old Testament as you know it, into Greek. And when they all got together and found out they'd all done it, they compared them and it was exactly the same. Every single letter, exactly the same. There's some major problems with that, because the biblical Hebrew text doesn't quite follow the Septuagint, but was taken from the Septuagint of the Christians. And in order to turn the Septuagint back into the Hebrew text, which the Dead Sea Scrolls has a number of them in Hebrew. There are some in Greek, but not all. We had run into some linguistic problems. In order to produce the Septuagint translation, you have to combine different countries' words and their meanings to claim they're all the same for biblical Hebrew. What we're talking about is a multi-personality disorder. We're talking about something that so cannot happen. And thus why everybody thinks Joseph Smith was wrong about Genesis chapter 1, verse 1. Because Joseph Smith is saying, no, you've got to stick with the linguistic pattern all the way through. Elohim has to be plural. It cannot be used as the Christian singular masculine. The singular plural magistry. Yeah. It can't be done. And so the whole linguistic pattern needs to be readjusted to fit one of the original authors. Because what they're doing is saying, well, the Septuagint and thus the biblical Hebrew text is a combination of different words all thrown in together into this narrative that is inconsistent both in definition and in grammatical termination, but also in sentence structure. This is clearly a fraud that is being perpetuated on us. And so that's how I deciphered Paleo-Hebrew and ran the test on the biblical Hebrew text by purging it of all of the added vowels and vowel points. I devoweled Brown Driver Briggs Hebrew English Lexicon to get to the root words, ran the tests to look for patterns, came up with volumes of research documents, not some little pamphlet by William Foxwell Albright, and ran the test on translation to look for the one pattern that fits all the way through. And thus, Joseph Smith is correct. And so Bereshit, in case there's any of you who might know this information, the Beth has to be cut off. I even found the Dead Sea Scroll document that shows that it wasn't there. But I saw they tried to tamper with it to remove it out. To cover it up. We can't have Joseph right. And so you have Roshit, and then bara. Bara is considered the verb. There's a problem. What's the termination for the verb? You can't have bara. Otherwise you call it a noun. And then where's the verb? And so what happened is that the original document is supposed to have the T at the end of Roshit as the prefix determinative termination for the verb, which is future tense. And so Rosh is the first word. Rosh, the head, that's the head God, will create or bring forth. You got to understand, translation is not just one words. It's multiple understandings. It's a visionary language. Because bara, even Rosh, has the word for seer in Paleo-Hebrew. Visionary language. And so, to create is a mental visionary process. Seership. And then it's together with the heavens, or create Elohim in the plural, together with the heavens and the earth. Real simple. But with all of that post-Christianity additions into the biblical Hebrew text is where everybody gets stumped. They assume it's correct, and they never bothered to check. Should have trusted Joseph. Should have trusted Joseph. So yeah, that never happened in 34 CE, BCE, and 3rd century BCE. Doesn't apply. Doesn't apply. Here's one of curiosity. It doesn't really apply, but it's one of interest. On the 25th of Tevet, in 332 BCE, Alexander the Great was informed by a Samaritan that the Jews intended to betray him. And so Alexander the Great meets with the high priest of the Jews at that time, to say, hey, I understand you're wanting to betray me. Samaritans. See why they hate each other? They're always accusing the other and narking on him. And so it's significant in that later on, 200 years approximately later on, that would be when the Greeks take over the Jerusalem temple. Not the Samaritan temple, in Shechem. And so after taking back their temple on Hanukkah, they then later on destroy the Danite on the hill, Danite temple on the Mount Ephraim of Shechem, of the Samaritans. They destroy it. And that's for the Kislev information that I provided for you. And another one that doesn't fully apply to the Latter-day Prophecies, but is of significance, is on the 28th of Tevet in 81 BCE. We're now in the Roman period time. Shimon ben Shetach ejects the Sadducees from the Sanhedrin, replacing them with his Pharisaic disciples loyal to the Mishnah. And that is fun when you understand your scriptures, not just of Moses after the Exodus, and they get to the desert of Deseret, goes to Utah, gets the law, and then comes back and sees everybody committing the abomination of desolation. Different temple rituals and orgy sex of the Romans, not the Greeks, but still prostitution and orgies. So the sex crimes with altering the temple sacrifices. And so Moses is taken out of their midst, and the holy priesthood also, and left with the Aaronic priesthood for the ministering of angels through dreams. And so that's what I see here with this historical event. And so Joseph Smith, in section 84, I believe, talks about Moses was taken out of their midst and the holy priesthood also, because Mormons were incapable of being obedient. They did not want to be free from their bondage. They liked being in bondage. They liked being prostituted. They liked orgy sex. All the confusion in the genealogical temple file. We're not quite sure which one is the father, so we'll just put a whole bunch of men that were involved in the gangbang that one night, that we assume might be when you got pregnant, although there are several other gangbangs that you were involved in, Mom. And that happens here in Utah. that happens. I worked with a woman who said that she was gangbanged by a local gang here. So, alrighty. So now I've got some work to do. Got some work to do. I don't see anything else. Got other stuff to talk about in the coming days.